Hello, this is Mel Thompson, and this is a podcast and a series of podcasts about political risk. Today we'll be talking about cyber policy, the policy of China in particular, and how this particular cyber policy is a political threat to U.S. companies and the government in general. China has a very effective cyber policy in place, one that is not acknowledged by the Chinese government, but one that is known to the U.S. government. It has two prongs. The first is censorship that controls the in and outflow of content. The second is the gathering of information that can enhance China's economic and security interests. These interests are advanced by using obtained information for economic gain and then attacking the ability of the U.S. government and companies to use the same information for the same type of purpose. The first prong, which we will look at, is the censorship one. It is not a secret that for many years the Chinese government has been a world leader in cyber censorship. Over a dozen government ministries are reportedly involved in efforts to keep the internet free and clear of items that they do not want their general public to see. And this is a problem to the degree that there's a lot of misinformation that many people in the communities that would purchase goods and services from the United States and other countries that import into China don't know. If they don't know the facts, if they can't get the facts, then they are more likely than not going to ever be, or in the short term, if not the long term, be customers. Customers drive economies. Economies drive the overall economic model that enables nations to remain afloat. And in the case of China, you have an economic model that is driven by, on one hand, censorship, but that is offset by the internal mechanisms that enable the same people who will be buying your goods and services to buy goods and services from other countries that are more amenable to China's political taste, and also internal policies that enable these people to buy homegrown goods. The problem, as far as a political risk is concerned, is very clear. If you can't get into a market, or if you are basically in a market that on its face looks as if it's open and free, when in fact it is not, you're really not going to be selling or involved in policies or projects that could perhaps benefit not only the Chinese people but also your bottom line. So the censorship creates a real problem when you're trying to communicate with people on the ground, trying to cut deals, trying to create opportunities. These things, in many cases, prevent economic growth. They prevent a lot of options for foreign direct investors and companies that want to be involved in China. And not for 1 minute do I not understand the reasoning behind this. The Chinese government has very, very clear reasons. They are their own reasons, and their reasons are that they would like to make sure that their economy is free and clear of what they consider ideas, certain ideas that are not conducive to the government's liking, that they do not want from the Chinese people. That is their right. But the foreign direct investor and governments, as well as companies, need to understand that this is a real political risk that does exist, and you need to take it into consideration. You could not rely upon hard numbers to say we're going to have this project up and running. For this cost, we're going to have this many widgets sold. It doesn't work quite that way in China because you really don't know how many people are going to be exposed, or if they are exposed, what, and if they will be allowed to be your point person on the ground. China is a very, very unique place in the sense that you really need to be there. Yet it is a place where it is not the easiest to reach people who are decision makers that can help your project and or your sales force move forward. Now that is the first political risk, and I think we've covered that somewhat. But the other one that I would like to look at very briefly is one that is a little bit more, shall we say, difficult to pin down, yet more well known in many ways because of just the fact that many people have personal computers and they have had a virus on a computer at some point, or something that has created a slew of advertisements popping up that you do not want. Under the topic of data gathering, we shall look at the issue of cybersecurity. And cybersecurity meaning that the Chinese government has a very clear and, shall we say, somewhat secretive yet well known policy of trying to get information over the internet by hacking into government computers, U.S. government computers, and computers of U.S. companies. So they can deny it all they want, but it exists. A lot of countries do this, and it's not a secret, yet it is a secret. So how do you protect yourself from this type of thing? You really can't 100%. The government, the U.S. government, is doing the best it can to try to prevent these types of things from happening. However, you're always going to be exposed to a certain degree because technology moves a lot faster than many of our minds do. And because of that, you will always have a risk that is one step ahead of you. In the context of a political risk, this is very serious. A deal could be exposed and be, shall we say, diminished in its value and credibility before it's ever put in front of somebody in China that you would like to make a contact with. A particular investment could be diminished in many ways based upon information that is put into a document, put into a database that is completely untrue and frivolous. Many, many things can happen that can impact a foreign direct investment in an adverse way due to cyber terrorism, which is the term that is thrown around quite a bit, but it really does fit in a case where you're worried, you're terrorized, you're concerned about what is going to happen to the information and data that I'm conveying to a particular contact in a foreign country. Will it be impacted in some adverse way by a government operative that does not like the project or doesn't want my particular company to get a foothold there? These two key political risks cannot be completely discounted. They cannot be completely resolved just by being well prepared. They can only be mitigated. And mitigation means you need to have some key people on the ground, key contacts within the Chinese government. Make sure that you're somewhat on good terms with many, many people at the U.S. State Department level. And also assure that the overall protection that you can possibly put in place, the level of protection when it comes to insurance, when it comes to the shipping, the supply chain, many, many types of things, the insurance that can be put in place on these types of foreign direct investments is adequate and in some cases above adequate. This has been Mel Thompson.